Get ready for a journey full of mystery and supernatural investigation. In today's video, we'll explore the dark secrets behind inexplicable events and delve into stories that will leave you with goosebumps. If you like this type of content, take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and don't miss any of our videos. Leave your like and share with friends who love a good thriller. Stepping into the dimly lit theater, I felt as though I had crossed into another world, one suspended in time. Dust motes danced lazily in the narrow beams of light that filtered through the cracked windows, illuminating the remnants of a past long forgotten. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of mildew and age, as if every breath I took was steeped in the stories of the countless performances that had graced this stage. I could almost hear the echoes of laughter and applause mingling with the faint whispers of something darker, a chilling undercurrent that sent a shiver down my spine. As I wandered through the rows of crumbling seats, I couldn't shake the sensation that I was not alone. The silence was unnerving, yet it was occasionally pierced by distant sounds that seemed to originate from the very walls surrounding me. It was then that I heard them. Screams. Distant and haunting, they reverberated in my ears, drawing me deeper into the theater's bowels. "What the hell?" I muttered under my breath, glancing around to see if anyone else had ventured in. But I was alone. At least, I thought I was. I shook my head, trying to dismiss the unsettling feeling that clung to me like a shroud. "Just the wind," I reassured myself, finally settling into the worn velvet seat at the center of the auditorium. My fingers brushed against the fabric, and I felt a strange connection to the audience members who had once sat here, eagerly awaiting the magic of live theater. But along with that nostalgia came an unsettling thought. What had happened in this space? What secrets lay buried beneath the layers of dust and decay? My eyes wandered to the stage, where the heavy curtains hung like the weight of history itself. It was then that I noticed something on the ground, a crumpled playbill, its edges yellowed and frayed. Curiosity piqued, I leaned forward and picked it up. The title read, "The Fall of Eliza," and my heart raced as I scanned the details. The play was performed in the late 1920s, but it was the mention of an actress named Eliza Harper that captured my attention. The playbill hinted at a tragic event during the performance, a mysterious disappearance that had shrouded the theater in darkness ever since. Eliza Harper, I whispered to myself, the name rolling off my tongue like a forgotten melody. I felt a pull, a need to uncover the truth behind her story. "What happened to you?" I wondered aloud, my voice echoing softly in the vast emptiness of the theater. The energy in the room shifted, and for a moment I thought I felt a presence lingering just beyond my sight. Determined to learn more, I exited the auditorium and made my way to the backstage area, where memories clung to the air like a heavy fog. The old wooden floor creaked beneath my feet, and as I explored the narrow corridors, I stumbled upon a small door that led to a dusty dressing room. Inside, the mirrors were cracked, and remnants of old costumes hung limply on their hangers. I felt as though I was trespassing in a sacred space, one that had been untouched by time. Suddenly, I was jolted from my reverie by the sound of footsteps. "Hello? Is someone there?" I called out, my voice trembling slightly. The only response was the quiet rustling of fabric, as if someone was shifting just out of view. I took a cautious step forward, my heart racing. "I'm just a historian," I said, trying to project confidence. "I'm not here to disturb anything." Then I heard a soft, melodic voice from behind me. "You're not the first to come searching for Eliza." I turned quickly to find a young woman with dark hair and piercing blue eyes standing in the doorway. She wore a faded costume that seemed to belong to another era. "I'm Lila," she introduced herself, a hint of sadness in her smile. "I've spent my life connected to this theater." "Connected how?" I asked, intrigued. Lila stepped closer, her expression serious. "Eliza's story is one of tragedy and loss. She vanished on stage one fateful night, and the theater has never truly recovered. People say her spirit still lingers here, searching for answers." A chill ran down my spine as I absorbed her words. "Do you believe in ghosts?" I asked, half joking, but the gravity of the situation felt all too real. "I do," she replied, her eyes unwavering, "and I think we're meant to uncover the truth together." As I followed Lila down the narrow corridor lined with dusty portraits of actors long gone, the air felt heavy with the weight of untold stories. The flickering overhead lights cast eerie shadows that danced along the faded wallpaper, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. "Are you sure this is where the archives are?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Lila turned, her eyes shining with a mix of excitement and trepidation. "I've been here countless times. The archives are just up ahead. There's so much history hidden in this theater. I can feel it." Her enthusiasm was infectious, and I found myself sharing in her fervor, despite the chill that ran down my spine. As we stepped into the cramped archive room, the smell of aged paper and leather filled the air. Shelves stacked high with old scripts, playbills, and newspaper clippings loomed around us. I felt an electric thrill course through me as I realized we were about to delve deeper into the mystery of Eliza Harper's disappearance. I reached for a stack of yellowed newspapers, my fingers trembling slightly. "Let's see what the papers have to say about that night," I suggested, pulling out a clipping that caught my eye. The headline screamed, "Tragic Disappearance at the Grand Theater." The article detailed the chaos of the evening with eyewitness accounts that contradicted each other. Lila leaned over my shoulder, her voice a whisper of excitement. "Look at this. It says Eliza was last seen backstage just before the final act. No one knows what happened after that." Her eyes darted across the page, absorbing every detail. I could feel the tension rising as we sifted through the articles, each one revealing more about that fateful night. "This one mentions a fight between Eliza and Clara," I said, my heart racing. "It seems there was jealousy brewing long before Eliza vanished." Lila's brow furrowed in thought. "Clara was always envious of Eliza's talent. It's possible she couldn't stand the thought of being overshadowed." Her voice trembled slightly, and I couldn't help but notice the spark of fear in her eyes. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the stage, causing us both to jump. "What was that?" I asked, my heart pounding. I glanced at Lila, and she looked just as startled as I felt. "Let's check it out," she said, determination lacing her tone. We cautiously made our way back to the main stage area, the wooden floor creaking beneath our feet. As we stepped into the vast auditorium, the atmosphere shifted. The air felt cooler, and an unsettling silence enveloped us. "Did you hear that?" Lila whispered, her gaze fixed on the stage. I nodded, straining my ears. Soft whispers floated through the air, weaving around us like a ghostly melody. My skin prickled as I turned to look at the stage, where shadows flickered in the dim light. Without warning, the prop, a dusty old chair, moved ever so slightly, as if nudged by an unseen hand. "Did you see that?" I gasped, my voice barely a whisper. Lila's eyes widened in disbelief. "Something is definitely here with us," she said, her voice shaky. A sudden chill swept through the theater, and I felt my breath hitch in my throat. I caught a glimpse of a shadow darting across the stage, vanishing into the darkness. "Lila, we have to find out what happened to Eliza," I urged, my resolve hardening. "If there's a spirit here, it might be tied to her story." "Agreed," she replied, her expression a mix of fear and determination. "We owe it to her to uncover the truth." With that, we turned our attention back to the archives, searching for anything that could shed light on Eliza's life beyond the stage. Hours flew by as we sifted through old records, piecing together snippets of her life. Each discovery only fueled the haunting atmosphere around us. Finally, we decided to visit the local library, hoping to find more information about Eliza and her mysterious rival, Clara. As we walked through the streets of London, the evening air thick with anticipation, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being drawn into something much larger than ourselves. "Do you think we'll find anything more about Clara?" I asked, glancing sideways at Lila. "I hope so. The connection between them feels so important," she replied, her voice steady despite the uncertainty that loomed over us. "Whatever happened in this theater is still echoing through time. We need to understand it." As we stepped into the library, the familiar scent of aged books enveloped us. I felt a surge of determination. We were on the brink of unveiling a dark history that had long been buried, and I was ready to confront whatever secrets awaited us in the pages of the past. As I stepped back into the theater, a shiver raced down my spine. The air felt heavier, almost electric, as if it were pregnant with secrets begging to be uncovered. Lila stood beside me, her eyes scanning the shadowy corners of the auditorium, where the faintest glimmers of light barely penetrated the darkness. We had come prepared to perform a scene from one of Eliza's plays, hoping that invoking her spirit might provide us the answers we so desperately sought. "Are you ready?" Lila asked, her voice a mix of excitement and trepidation. "I think so," I replied, though my heart was pounding against my ribcage. "Let's give it a try." We set ourselves on the stage, the wooden floor creaking beneath our feet. I could feel the history of the place enveloping me like a shroud. The dim glow of the stage lights flickered, casting eerie shadows around us. Lila took a deep breath, her eyes glinting with determination. "Remember," she said, "we're not just acting, we're reaching out to her." I nodded, focusing on the script as we began to recite our lines. The words flowed between us, echoing off the walls, and for a moment I lost myself in the performance. But as we delved deeper into the emotional core of the scene, I noticed a sudden drop in temperature. It felt as if an unseen force had swept through the theater, making the air thick and cold. "Alex, do you feel that?" Lila whispered, her breath visible in the chilling air. "Yeah," I replied, my voice barely above a murmur. "It's like the atmosphere just shifted." Just then the lights flickered, more violently, and a cacophony of anguished cries erupted from the depths of the theater. My heart raced as I exchanged terrified glances with Lila. "What was that?" she exclaimed, her voice trembling. I don't know," I stammered, trying to keep my composure. "But we have to stay focused. We must communicate with her." "Okay," Lila said, her resolve strengthening. "Let's try to call her name." With a deep breath, I steadied myself. "Eliza, if you can hear us, please show yourself," I shouted, my voice echoing through the empty theater. Silence enveloped us, thick and suffocating. I could hear the sound of my own heartbeat thundering in my ears, drowning out any other noise. Lila's hand gripped mine tightly. "Nothing," she whispered, disappointment evident in her tone. But just as we began to lose hope, a faint sound emerged, like the shuffling of feet from backstage. It was subtle at first, but it grew louder, more deliberate. My heart jumped into my throat as the sound echoed in the stillness. It was as if someone or something was moving towards us. "Did you hear that?" Lila asked, her eyes wide with fear. "Yes," I replied, straining to listen. "It's coming from back there." "Should we go check?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "We can't just leave," I insisted. "What if it's Eliza? We have to find out who it is." With a mix of fear and determination, we cautiously made our way toward the dimly lit backstage area, the shadows swallowing us as we moved further into the darkness. My pulse quickened with every step, and I could feel a powerful energy surrounding us, urging us forward. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing against the walls. "Is anyone there?" The shuffling stopped, replaced by a heavy silence. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end as I strained to hear anything. A whisper, a breath, a sign that we were not alone. "Maybe we should turn back," Lila suggested, her voice shaking slightly. "No," I said firmly, though doubt gnawed at my mind. "We have to keep going. We can't let fear stop us now." Just as I finished speaking, a gust of wind swept through the backstage area, causing the props to rattle ominously. I could see Lila's eyes widen in terror as she stumbled backward, clutching my arm. "Alex, what is happening?" she cried, her voice rising in pitch. "I don't know, but we're close," I assured her, feeling a strange mixture of fear and exhilaration. With that, I stepped further into the darkness, hoping that whatever lay ahead would finally offer us the answers we sought. As I stood in front of the hidden door, its weathered wood seemed to beckon us closer. An invitation to uncover the past that had been buried for too long. Lila's eyes sparkled with a mix of excitement and trepidation as she pushed the door open, revealing a narrow staircase that spiraled down into darkness. "Are you ready for this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. If we're going to find out what happened to Eliza, we need to see what's down there. With a flick of my flashlight, the beam cut through the shadows, illuminating the dust-coated steps. Each creak echoed like a heartbeat, amplifying the tension in the air. As we descended, I felt the chill wrap around us, as if the theater itself was exhaling a long-held breath. At the bottom of the stairs, we entered a forgotten dressing room, its walls lined with faded mirrors and remnants of a time long past. My heart raced as I spotted an old trunk in the corner, covered in cobwebs. "Look," I exclaimed, rushing toward it. Lila followed closely, her eyes wide with anticipation. "Do you think it's hers?" I knelt before the trunk and lifted the lid, revealing a trove of Eliza's belongings, dresses that shimmered like ghosts in the dim light, photographs of her in various roles, and, at the very top, a leather-bound diary. My fingers trembled as I reached for it, the weight of history pressing down on me. "This might tell us everything," I said, flipping it open. The pages were yellowed, the ink slightly smudged but still legible. "Read it out loud," Lila urged, leaning in closer. I cleared my throat and began to read, my voice barely above a whisper. March 15, 1928. I fear Clara is trying to ruin me. Her jealousy is palpable, and I can feel it in the air when we share the stage. I paused, glancing at Lila, whose expression reflected both shock and sympathy. I continued. "I've heard whispers that she's been meeting with the manager behind my back. What could she possibly want from him?" My heart races at the thought. "Jealousy can drive people to terrible places," Lila murmured, her face pale. Flipping through more pages, I stumbled upon an entry that made my breath hitch. April 1st, 1928. I can't shake the feeling that danger is lurking around every corner. I've fallen in love with Richard, the manager. But if Clara finds out, I dread to think what she might do. "Richard," Lila echoed, her eyes narrowing. "He's been mentioned in the archives. He had a reputation for being charming but ruthless." I set the diary down, my mind racing. So Clara wasn't just a rival. She was involved with Richard, too. Lila nodded, her gaze distant. "It's a twisted triangle of love and betrayal." "But what happened to Eliza? Did Clara confront her?" I flipped to the last pages, where the ink was more erratic, the words frantic. April 15th, 1928. I saw Clara talking to Richard. I confronted him, and he brushed me off. "You're just being paranoid, Eliza," he said, "but I can feel the darkness closing in." "That's it!" Lila exclaimed, her excitement palpable. "We need to find out what happened on that night." Suddenly, a cold gust swept through the room, extinguishing the light from my flashlight. "Lila?" I called, panic creeping into my voice. "I'm here," she replied, her voice shaky. As I fumbled for my phone to use its flashlight, I felt an oppressive weight in the air, and the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoed through the room. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my heart racing. "Yes, it came from the stage," Lila whispered, her breath hitching. We exchanged glances, a silent agreement forming between us. "We have to go back," I said, adrenaline surging through my veins. "Now?" she asked, hesitating. "Now. If Eliza's spirit is trying to communicate, we can't ignore it." We hurried back up the stairs, the forgotten dressing room closing behind us like a tomb. As we stepped onto the stage, the air crackled with tension. The lights flickered, and the whispers that had haunted us before began to rise again, echoing through the empty theater. "Let's perform her final monologue," I suggested, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through me. "It might be the key to unlocking whatever is binding her here." Lila nodded, determination replacing her earlier fear. "Let's do it, for Eliza." We took our positions on stage, the silence of the theater wrapping around us like a shroud. As I began to recite Eliza's words, I felt the energy shift, a palpable force surrounding us. The temperature dropped, and I could almost hear her voice mingling with mine, urging us to uncover the truth of her tragic fate. In that moment, I knew we were on the brink of revealing something monumental, something that would bridge the gap between the living and the dead. The air felt electric as the apparition hovered before us, her presence both haunting and sorrowful. I could see the flickering of the stage lights casting an ethereal glow around her, illuminating the deep lines of anguish etched into her ghostly face. "You don't understand," she whispered, her voice a chilling echo. "It was jealousy that led to my demise, jealousy that silenced me forever." I exchanged a glance with Lila, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and empathy. "Eliza," I said, my voice trembling slightly, "we want to help you. Please, tell us what happened." Her spectral form seemed to shimmer, and with a flick of her translucent hand, she pointed towards a trapdoor hidden beneath the rotting floorboards of the stage. "There lies the truth," she murmured, her gaze intensifying. "Beneath the layers of dust and time, My story is buried. Find it, and you will understand. The adrenaline surged through me, pumping like a drum in my chest. We have to get to it, I urged Lila, who was already moving toward the trapdoor, her determination evident in her swift steps. We knelt together, pulling aside the heavy wooden boards that covered the entrance. The smell of mildew wafted up as we pried it open, revealing a dark abyss below. Are you ready? Lila asked, her voice steadier than I felt. As ready as we'll ever be, I replied, and together we climbed down into the hidden chamber. The space was cramped and damp, the air thick with the musty scent of decay. As we fumbled for our flashlights, the beams of light spilled across the room, revealing remnants of a life long forgotten. My heart sank as we stumbled upon Clara's remains, still clad in the tattered remnants of what had once been a beautiful dress. Is that? Lila gasped, her hand covering her mouth in shock. Yes, I confirmed, moving closer to the lifeless form. This must be Clara. But it was the blood-stained dress that sent chills racing down my spine. It was unmistakably Eliza's, the fabric once vibrant now marred by dark, dried stains. This is horrific, I whispered, my mind racing with the implications. Eliza's death wasn't just an accident. It was a murder. A gust of wind swirled through the chamber, and I could feel the temperature drop, the air growing heavier with the weight of the revelation. Eliza, I called out, my voice echoing in the confined space. Was this Clara's doing? Did she kill you? The ghostly figure of Eliza shimmered beside us, her sorrow palpable. It was more than jealousy, she explained, her voice quivering. Clara felt she was losing everything. The love of the manager, the adoration of the audience. She believed that my rising star would eclipse hers forever. In a moment of rage, she took my life, and in doing so, she sealed her own fate. Lila shivered, stepping back slightly. And now you both linger here, trapped in this cycle of vengeance and sorrow. Yes, Eliza replied softly. But it is not just me who haunts these walls. Clara's spirit is bound here too, angry and resentful, unable to find peace. I swallowed hard, realizing the weight of what we had uncovered. We need to find a way to end this, I urged, glancing at Lila, who nodded in agreement. They both deserve to be free. The ghost of Eliza nodded solemnly, her eyes glistening with unspilled tears. If you can confront Clara, reveal the truth of her actions, perhaps she will understand the pain she caused and find peace. Suddenly, a cold draft swept through the chamber, and I felt a shiver race down my spine. We have to hurry, I said, urgency creeping into my voice, before it's too late. As we climbed back up to the stage, I could feel the weight of the past pressing against us. The spirits of both women intertwined in a tragic dance of betrayal and loss. The theater itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the truth to emerge from the shadows. Are you ready? Lila asked, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding, ready as I'll ever be. With that, we stepped back into the haunting embrace of the theater, determined to confront the ghosts that lingered within its walls, to reveal the secrets that had been buried for far too long. The echoes of the past called to us, and we knew we had to answer. As we bolted from the hidden chamber, the air around us thickened, pressing against my chest like the weight of 1,000 memories. I could feel Lila's hand gripping mine, her palms sweaty and trembling. The walls of the theater seemed to pulse, as if the very structure were alive, constricting around us, eager to entrap us in its dark history. My heart raced, and a sudden flash of inspiration struck me. Eliza's diary. There was a passage that mentioned a hidden way out, a secret escape route known only to the performers. Lila, wait, I shouted, tugging her to a stop. The diary. There was a mention of a passage, something about the old trapdoor leading to the catacombs beneath the theater. Are you sure? She gasped, her eyes wide with fear and uncertainty. Positive. We need to find it. It might be our only chance. With adrenaline surging through us, we retraced our steps, my mind racing as I tried to remember the layout of the theater. I could almost hear Eliza's voice echoing in my head, guiding us through the maze of memories and shadows. We reached the main stage, and I scanned the floor, searching for any signs of the passage I had envisioned. There! I pointed to a faded outline in the floorboards near the wings. That looks like it could be the spot. As we approached, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. A gust of cold air swept through the theater, carrying with it a sense of foreboding. In an instant, Clara's spirit emerged, her translucent form wreathed in a shroud of anger. "You dare to disturb me?" she hissed, her voice a chilling whisper that echoed off the walls. The fury in her eyes was palpable, and I felt Lila stiffen beside me. "We're not here to hurt you," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We just want the truth." "The truth?" Clara spat, her spectral figure flickering like a faulty light. "You think you can uncover the past and walk away unscathed? Eliza took everything from me." "But you were the one who let jealousy consume you," Lila interjected, stepping forward, her voice rising with newfound bravery. "You killed her." "I loved him." Clara's tone shifted, a mix of pain and fury. "She was nothing but a pawn in his game, a distraction, and I was left to wither in her shadow." The realization struck me like a lightning bolt. Clara was a victim of her own choices, twisted by jealousy and obsession. But as I looked into her ghostly eyes, I saw something deeper, an anguish that transcended her desire for revenge. "Clara, it wasn't Eliza's fault," I reasoned, my heart pounding in my chest. "You let your anger blind you, but it doesn't have to end this way." As I spoke, a flicker of doubt crossed Clara's face, but before I could seize the moment, the atmosphere shifted again. Shadows danced across the stage, and I could feel Eliza's presence looming in the wings, her spirit intertwined with the very fabric of the theater. "Enough!" Eliza's voice rang out, resonating with authority. She stepped from the shadows, her form shimmering with a soft light. "You were not the only one who suffered, Clara. I was trapped in your web of lies and deceit." "What? You're alive?" Clara gasped, her anger momentarily giving way to shock. "Alive in a way, yes," Eliza replied, her gaze piercing through Clara's fury. "But it was your jealousy that chained us both to this place. I've hidden in the shadows, bound by my guilt for what happened that night. It was never just you." The revelation hung in the air, heavy with the weight of truth. Clara's face contorted, caught between rage and disbelief. "Why?" Clara's voice cracked, the fury melting away to reveal a raw vulnerability. "Why didn't you come forward?" Eliza stepped closer, her expression softening. "I was terrified, Clara. You were my friend, and yet I was afraid of what you might do. I thought hiding would save me, but it only prolonged our suffering." As the tension in the air shifted, I felt the very essence of the theater tremble around us. The spirits, bound by their unresolved pain, finally faced the truth of their intertwined fates. "It's time to let go," I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. "You both deserve peace." As the words sank in, the ghostly figures began to intertwine, their energies converging. The oppressive atmosphere lightened, and I could feel the weight lifting from my shoulders. The haunting cries of anguish morphed into a harmonious echo, a release of pent-up sorrow and regret. In that moment, I understood that the true haunting was not merely the ghosts of the past, but the guilt and anger that had kept them tethered to this world. As light enveloped them, I held Lila close, knowing we had played a part in their liberation. And as the last vestiges of the spirits faded, I couldn't help but wonder if we, too, would ever truly escape the shadows of this theater and the dark history it held.